not defined. So if I don't write it over here, what happens is you will get an error that there is no initialized value for it. Okay, so in some cases you will not have an initialized value, like something which initializes the values. Right now it's undefined and I don't know what is the value of this particular article, but we know that the value of the article is going to come in the future and we don't need to worry about it. So what we do is we tell Typescript that okay, that yes, this article is going to be article type, but it is going to come in the future. We don't have any initialized or default value for it. So wait for the actual value to come in sometime in the future when the code runs. So that's the only use of the exclamation mark. Otherwise, if I don't put the exclamation mark, then I have to write a default value over here based on everything in the article. So I have to say, okay, author is going to be this. Everything I have to create as a proper structure over here and then implement it. So it's very common that we don't have a default value every time. We don't want to set up any defaults. So we just tell Typescript that, okay, the value is going to come in the future. Right now, we don't have any initialized value for this. Okay, that's the use of exclamation mark. The interface when you're implementing, it has this question mark over here. The question mark means this is an optional value. So like if I have an article, the article can have some values which are optional. So I just wrote title as optional value. You can have this news, this top news is optional value. So when you are creating the records, like let's say if I'm creating a record for myself, I'm creating an object for myself, then I can say, okay, my name is this, okay, like something as a name. Then I can say had dinner. Okay, so I can say true. But in some cases, this value, like some values are not always available in the data. This is based on some logic. Maybe there is a business logic in for some records that this data will not be available for you. Like you may have iPhone, you may have an Android phone. So in that case, I can have a flag that, okay, this person has iPhone, no. So we can remove this flag completely from the system. So there are some keys which are going to be optional when you're getting the data from APIs. This is based on your business logic. There is no hard rule that what keys are going to be available, what keys are not going to be available. It depends on what data you're getting and how the business logic is implemented on it. So in some cases, some keys are optional. So let me ask you a question like, do you have a driving license? Some people over here may have a driving license, some people may not have a driving license. In that case, that particular key is not required for your record. So if I don't have a driving license, my record will be like something like name is equal to Raveen, and all the other details will be there, but I don't have a driving license, so it will not have that key. But once I have a driving license, my data will be updated into the system. It will say, okay, has driving license. Okay, in that case, it will say yes or true. So there are optional keys which are going to be in the data. So those optional keys need to be controlled in your interface also, because if you are receiving something from an API, the interface will assume that everything is going to be available. But in some cases, these optional keys may not be available to you. And you will define that, okay, this is question mark. This question mark means that this title key is the optional value. It may come or it may not come. So it will automatically assign it to undefined over. So you can see over here, the tooltip over here which shows that the article title is going to be a type of string or undefined. But when I'm defining it, I'm just writing string over here. So it knows that it can be undefined value because it's optional, or otherwise it's going to be a string type. So these are the two use cases of these symbols. Okay, is it clear now? Guys, is it clear? Mandeep, Maheshwari, is it clear? Great. Okay, so the input part we are going to cover today with the input and output implementation. And we're also going to start with implementing directives in our code. So we'll just catch up on the yesterday session code and also start working on the new things. Okay, I got another question. I cannot see the animation on my page. I don't exactly know what part of the code is missing. So Poonam, I think I need to see a screen. Like, can you do a screen share?
Okay. So can you see my screen, Praveen?
Yeah, again.
Okay, so in this article call out, I cannot see any animation. So basically, I have added this code. So it should show the animation, right? So I'm not getting exactly what is the thing I'm missing.
You didn't added the CSS. Can you go to the CSS?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the host you have opacity 0. Okay,
Yeah.
so in the TS code, can you go back to the TS please?
Yeah.
Yeah, the TS is the loaded state. When you are in the loaded state, the opacity will be 1. Okay, for the host, finding animation state get. Okay, this looks correct. Can you go back to the screen? Can you, yeah, refresh the page? Yeah, so the animation is working. I can see the animation. It fades in. So see, there is a fading.
Okay, so it's showing, you are saying, just when the screen is loading at that time.
Yeah, it will only see load because it's based on when the page gets loaded.
Okay. Thank you so much. Got it.
Welcome. Right, guys, let's start with the content for today. So in the yesterday session, we haven't covered the output part, like what are output, and we haven't covered the lifecycle hooks of a component. Okay, so we'll go through them and see what. First we'll go through the lifecycle hooks, and then we'll work on the input and output properties. So Shashank, what is your question? Your question is like in yesterday's class, there was a problem in CSS section. So can we clear the issue of that thing one-to-one session? Shashank, you want to do a screen share? Okay, so we'll do the screen share later on. So if it is not a big problem, so we'll do the screen share at the last. Will not interrupt the flow of the session then. Okay, so first we'll cover lifecycle hooks in a component. So what is a lifecycle hook? Lifecycle hook means like the name means like it's how the life works of a component. So it's like everything when you which we have has a life cycle. So if you buy a new phone, the phone gets out of the box, you use the phone, you break the phone, and you buy a new phone. So that's a life cycle of a phone. Everything which we use or every living being also has a life cycle. So over here, our components also have a life cycle. So when a component is loaded on the screen, it from that to the point where the component is removed from the screen, there is a step of functions which will be called that will tell you that's what's going on with that particular component. And why do I need that? So let's say it's a very common thing, like on our birthday we get a gift. Okay, so when a component gets loaded on the system, it needs a gift. It needs that, okay, and it needs to load some data. Okay, that's the gift for a component. So over here, when a component gets loaded, it tells you that I am loaded on the screen. Now you can provide me some data, and that is done through the ng on init. So it's like a birthday for a component. Okay, so let's write a console over here and say init and run this code. So you can see I get a console over here which says init. So what's happening is at this point the component is loaded on the screen and it's available right now. So this is your first lifecycle look. When any component loads on the screen, the init gets triggered. So the init only gets triggered once in the whole lifecycle of a component. Means once the component is loaded, this init, the ng on init will never be called again until the component is removed from the screen and added to the screen again, or a new component is added. So you can see over here there is a count. It says for init. So let me zoom in the editor panel. So you can see over here it says for init. What is the for over here? Any answers for this? Why this is printing for? Yep. So there are 4 callouts. So this console.log which I've added, this is added in the article callout. Okay. So how many articles we have? There are 4 articles on the screen. So each of the component is added. So that means when the screen gets loaded, it creates 4 components, and those 4 components are initialized on the screen. So they will have independent events which will tell us that these components are loaded. Now we can have other lifecycle hooks. There are other few lifecycle hooks like the component gets destroyed. That means the component is removed from the screen. Then it will also tell you there are states where you will get information about what is the state the component is right now. So is it getting new properties? Like properties are values which you get from parent to child. So if it gets new properties from the parent to child, it will also give you a lifecycle hook that I'm receiving some properties from parent to child. Okay, so let's try this out. This example may not be very good for this use case. So what we'll do is we'll write a new code for a component and use that for this example. Okay, so I will just create a component over here, call it as lifecycle demo. Okay, the command for this is going to be this. And I will send it in the chat. Here you go. Okay, so you can create this component. Now I'll go to my app component HTML, and over here I will at the last we'll create another row after the login and add over here this component. So I'll write Metrica lifecycle demo component over here. It's very simple. In the app component HTML, you will add this components code. Okay, so now in this component we'll play with some lifecycle hooks. So let's say I will first add the init. We are familiar with the init. That's simple. Okay, now this will be printed when the component gets loaded on the screen. Okay, let's test this out. Do we get this message? Yes, we get this message over here that the init has happened on the lifecycle demo component. Okay, perfect. Now, how do we test other lifecycle hooks? So we can easily try out the destroy lifecycle hook when the component is removed from the screen. So over here, as a best practice, you should add the interface. See, when you add the interface, it will provide you instructions that what events are required or not. So you may see people who are not adding the things in the as I implement over here. They will just start using the hooks. So they will say, okay, I will just directly write the name of the method. And even if you don't implement ng on destroy and implement write the method over here, it will still work. But as a best practice, we should add the interface over here to tell that what we are implementing, and that should be implemented in our code. Okay, so now this is the ng on destroy. This will be called when the component gets removed from the screen. Okay, let's try this out. So we'll say ng, this will be destroy. Just write like this, the same console, but with this destroy over here. Okay, so this is destroy. Now let's see, does it print the value? Nope, it doesn't print the value. We have this like circle hook component over here, but the value doesn't print over here. So how will this value get triggered? So this component has to be removed from the screen. And how do we remove something from the screen? We can write a condition on it. So we can say ng. So we can write over here ng if. We can go to the template of the app component. In the app component template, I will write ng if on this component. So write star ng if and write some logic for the condition. So I don't have anything right now for the condition. So let's implement something. So over here, I will create a button, a simple HTML button. I will say toggle lifecycle component. Okay, so very simple. And on this, I will write an event. So we'll say on click, and we'll create a method over here, toggle lifecycle component. Okay, and we'll implement this method in the TS code. So I'll go to the template, the TS code for this app component, and write it over here that I want to toggle the component. And how do we toggle this? So very simple. We'll create a property. So we'll say public. You don't have to write public property every time because any property which you create, it's by default public. If you want to, you can. It's a good way to define that what values are public and what values are private in your code. But even if you don't write them, it will still work. So if I write toggle, I can say toggle is going to be a Boolean value, and by default, it's going to be a true value. So it's going to be true. Okay, and in the toggle lifecycle component, what I will do is I will just say, because this is a property of this class, I can say this dot toggle is equal to not this dot toggle. So this exclamation mark is not relevant to TypeScript. This is just a JavaScript code where I have something as a Boolean value, which I want to assign some result to it. And the value of that, what I'm assigning to it is whatever the current value is, just do the reverse of it. So if the value is true, the not syntax will make the value as false. If the value is false, not syntax will make it as a true. Okay, so this escalation mark is not same as what we do in the TypeScript code, so it is different. Okay. Just give me a minute. Sorry. Okay, so let's run this code now. So I have a property over here, toggle, which will be switching between true and false. So we can just pick this property and add it in the HTML over here. So in this ngIf, I'll just write toggle. Okay, so what I'm doing is I have a property which is going to be set as true or false, and we're controlling that with this toggle lifecycle component function. So we're just setting it to true or false based on what is the previous value. Okay, pretty simple code. And we'll go to our output on the browser. So we can see over here, this is the browser output. Okay, so you can see right now when this component gets loaded, it prints out lifecycle component in it. And now I click on toggle over here. So now you can see the component is removed from the screen. So we don't see that component, and we get a destroy message over here. So this means the component is removed from the code. Okay, so it's not visual, it's not been right now on the screen, so it's not there. So now it has been removed, and we get a lifecycle hook saying, okay, it's been destroyed. We run the code again. Now the component is added to the screen again, and we see this message that the component has again initialized on the screen. So the initialize will always happen whenever you are adding the component again to the screen, and it will only happen once in the lifecycle of a component. So once the destroy happens, that means the life cycle of a component is over and a new component will be created in that component's place. Okay, so I will give you the code for this. Try this out, then we'll continue. So over here, we'll just write some CSS for this so that it's easy to see which component gets added on the screen. Okay, so you can see okay, so I got a question. When we press the button, whole component is removed from the code, not from the code, just from the display. So if you see the HTML output of this code, you will find that this is the place where this component is. Okay, so when I click on this button toggle, yes, the code, like not from our files, just from what we are seeing on the screen, from that the HTML from the HTML structure, the component will be completely removed. So you can see over here, it added a comment over here to tell us that there is something which is going to be, which is controlled by ngIf. And when I toggle it again, this comment will be set to true, and the same place the component will be added. So this tells us also, this comment also tells us that there is something which is being controlled right now with ngIf. Okay, so I got a question. Can we write the toggle code in the same component which will be destroyed? No, because the destroy will only be triggered when the component has been removed from the screen. And to remove a component from the screen, you have to control it from the parent. The component self cannot control it. Okay, so try this out. First, you have to create a component. I've given you the command for it. The HTML for this component is, sorry, the CSS is required for this. CSS is this. There is this change in the new component. We have to add the on destroy and trigger the on destroy on it. Okay, in the app component, you have to add this component like this. And in the toggle, you have to add the component like this. So in the app component, you have to add the toggle methods. I'm pushing the code to GitHub also. So if you want to refer to GitHub, you can check that too. Okay, so please try this out. and then continue. We'll give you 5 minutes for this, then continue. Everyone, so let's continue. So any questions on the init and destroy? Okay, so I got a question. Where can we refer these chat sessions in the recording? No, these chat sessions are not available in the recording. So whatever code I'm sending you, please create a note file on your system and keep a track of these chat sessions, because even I don't save them. So it's very hard for me to also send you anything which I've sent you earlier. Sonal, what's your doubt? Okay, so Somnath's question is, when we press the button, it will hit destroy button. No, so what's happening is when you click on the button, this button over here, when you click on the button, it changes a value. It changes a value for the flag. The flag which we have set over here, that toggle true or false. Toggle true means that the item will be shown on the screen. If you set it to false, the item will be removed from the screen. And that is causing the lifecycle hooks. So when you set this to false, the component, because the component we added over here has a condition on it, the ng if condition on it, so that component gets removed from the screen, and that changes the or triggers the state or the lifecycle hook for you. Okay, so Sheikh, your question is, every time repeating the same question, wasting time to explain the same. Please help us know more on Angular with a bunch of examples. So what is, I think this is a good example to know how to handle lifecycle hook. So if I just start giving you daily tasks to implement something, you won't be able to do it. So you have to understand step by step. I can't just give you like hundreds of things to do and yeah, this is done. So this is how the course has been set up. We will take steps and implement things. We'll not be just rushing into everything in one go. Okay, now coming to the use of this, like why would you need this kind of a lifecycle hook? So this is required when you are getting data from APIs. So we haven't done the API implementation yet, but once we start getting data from the APIs, we need to store that data in a model. So now, let's say usually when you send a request to API, it will give you few kilobytes of data, 100 or 200 kilobytes of data. Okay, so that data has to be stored in your Angular application for some period so that the content shows on the screen. And now when you move from A component to B component or remove some components on the screen, the data will still persist in the Angular's services. And that's a very bad thing, because after some time, you have to remove that data. Otherwise, what will happen is you will end up with memory leaks happening. Your code has lots of information stored in the memory, uh, actually on the user's RAM, and your application will slow down and may crash the browser also. So in those cases, what we do is any data which is relevant to a component, will keep it only till the time when the component is available on the screen. And the moment the component gets destroyed, will destroy the data also in that case. So we haven't done that kind of a thing, but we'll do that later on the further sessions, that we get data from an API, store it in a service, and remove that data once the implementation, the component use case has been fulfilled. So it's just to first we understand these are lifecycle hooks, and they will help us getting the data from an API on the ng on it and deleting the data from the memory once it's not required. Okay, any questions on lifecycle hooks? Okay, I think no questions. The next thing is there is another lifecycle hook which is changes, on changes. Like when there is some change happening in the component's properties, then also there is a lifecycle loop which will get triggered. So you can go to the component, the lifecycle demo component. Okay, and implement the changes over here also. Okay, now the on changes requires you to implement the ng on changes lifecycle hook. Okay, so ng on changes, what it does is it lets you know that a new property has been passed into the component or not. So in the I think on the second session, the day before yesterday, or the last week session actually, we did implementation of an input where we receive an input from the parent component and make it available in the child. So let's take this example. So right now, okay, 1 second, let me open the file. So right now what we have is we have our app component. Okay, the app component has another child component which is the lifecycle demo component, which we added in our code. Okay, so the parent is the app component and the lifecycle component is our child component. Now, I have some data which is on the parent component. The parent component is app component, and I want to send the data to the lifecycle component. So for this, we use the concept of input. So we'll define an input on the child component. So we'll say I have an input, and this input will receive a property or a value from the parent. So over here, I can define a property which I want to pass in. So I can just pass in a message property. This message property will be sent to the child, which is the lifecycle component, and we can define a input for it. So we'll write, I want to receive a message property, and that is going to be a type of a string. So this is kind of a code which we need to implement in our child component. So what this will do is this will allow me to receive a property in my child component and use that property to show some content. So this will be used when you are creating reusable code, like the example which I've implemented for article callouts, the 4 article callouts which we have. This kind of example will be, this is the use of it. So you have one type of a component, you pass properties to it, and that can be used for showing different types of results on it. So in our case, we have one component for article callout, and it has different types of data shown in based on what properties we have passed to it. So when you're passing these properties, you can monitor that a property has been passed to it by the ng on changes. So let me show you that. Let's implement a lifecycle hook. Let's implement a input for this lifecycle component. We'll write @ input. So input is a decorator. Which property I want to receive? I can write any name over here. So I will receive a property called as message. It's going to be a type of string, and I don't have a initialized value for this. So I don't have a value. So I will write exclamation mark over here. So this value will be received in the future. Okay, and that's my input. Now, where do I get this input? It will come from the parent component. So the parent component over here is my app component. So in my parent component, what I will do is I will create an input box over here. We learned about two-way data binding in the yesterday session. So I will write an input box and write ng model in it. Okay, and write message like this, and write our input's name. That is also going to be a message like this. Okay, so this is I will just write it as user message. It gives me error that this property is not available. Yeah, it's not available. So we'll go to the component TS and create this property over here as a string and define a default value to it as an empty string. Okay, so we have this user message as a string. Now, this user message is my property or a property in my component. It's binded using two-way data binding. So that means your input can update this value and the TS code can also update this value. So what I can do is I can pass this user message as a value to the child component. So here, what we done earlier is we implemented a property on it, an input on it, which is called as message. See this one. Okay. So this is a property or an input value which my component will receive from parent to child. So over here, I have to create the relation. So I'll write, this will receive a property which is called as message, and the value of that will be the user message property of the component. So whatever the component's TS code has a value, I will pass it to the child component. Okay. Now, once the child component receives this value, it can show this value somewhere on the screen also. So I can pick this value and say user message, something which the user has typed in. So we'll receive this value and print the message. Okay. Okay. So now let's run this code, and we see this lifecycle component with the red border over here, and it has the user message as an empty string, so it doesn't shows any user message. So now I will type in some message over here. So I'll write hello world, and you can see this also gets added over here. The hello world message also gets added into the child component, which is the lifecycle component over here. So how this relation works? So how this is working is the input field uses the ng model to tell the app component that there is a value which I want to assign to the app component only. Okay, so it takes the value from the input box and assigns it to the user message property. Okay, this user message property gets updated in the TS code. So now the user message, which is a string, it's now not an empty string, but it will have the value which the user has typed in it. So once this gets updated in the TS code in the logic, then that value is going to be passed to the child component. The child component receives that value in the property which is called as message, and the value of that is called as message. Now, once the child component has received this value, it will go to the TS code of the child component, which is the lifecycle demo component, and receives it on the input. So we already have defined the input over here, the @ input, and it's looking for a property which is called as message, and the type of this is going to be a string, and there is no initialized value for it, so it will look for a value to be initialized later on. So once this value has been initialized, it's used in the template, and in template we are just writing user message and typing the message which the user has had over here. Okay, any questions on this, how this flow works? So Raj, in this scenario, the lifecycle component, I've shown you over here in the drawing that the lifecycle component is the child component and the app component is the parent. And the property which we are passing, that is the message property which has been sent over here. And that's been read in the input decorator, which is reading this property and passing it over here. Okay, so this is how we are receiving the value. We are passing the same value to the child component, and the child component is receiving this as the input. Okay, let me know any questions on this. Is everybody clear with this concept? See, this is a very important concept. I know you will feel like, why are we doing this very basic thing? But this is the most important concepts to start even with writing code in Angular. If you are not sure how reusable components can be created, you cannot work with Angular. So if you are clear with this concept, then let me know. If you need any more understanding on it, then do let me know too. Okay, I will just do a recap of it. So what we're doing is we are communicating between child and parent. So the parent component is the app component for you, and the child component is the lifecycle component. Okay, please remember this. Now, the parent component wants to send a message to the child component. So it's a property, just a property which you want to send. So I can just write it over here. The property which I want to send. The property name is called as message. Okay. Now this message property can be assigned with any kind of a value. So there is no specific saying that it has to be a number or a string. Anything can be assigned to it, and that will be sent to the lifecycle component, which is the child. The child component, if it wants to receive a value, it will only receive the value if you have defined input in it. Without defining the input, the properties will not be accepted by the child component. So what I did is I added an input in the child component, writing @input and the property which I want to receive and the type of it. Okay, so here is the code for that. So in the TS code of the child component, I'm writing @message and defining the type of it, that it is a string. And in the parent component, the app component over here, I'm saying that I want to pass a property to the lifecycle demo component, which is the child right now. And the name of the property is called as message. The value of it is going to be received from an ng model, which listens to an input box and passes the value into the property. So Raj, this is I'm passing the data, so you can pass in any kind of a data into it. So you can pass a string, you can pass a number, you can pass an object or an array into the property also. So if you have a number, like if you have an array, let's say you created an array like people, you can say people is an array and pass people array over here. That will be fine. But right now it is giving me error that because people is defined as an array and the property accepts the value as a string, so it gives me error. But you have to make the changes in the property that it accepts a array or a number or a string, whatever you have defined inside the child component. Okay, any questions on this? Okay, so now we're going to cover the output. So what is the output? So output is a way where you send data from your child component to the parent. So this is the input. Okay, so we are going to implement output now. So output is going to communicate from your child to the parent. Okay, now this communication which we have for the child to the parent, it depends on event. The parent component will receive an event, and that event will be triggered by your child component. So over here you will trigger a custom event. So the name of that event is something which you want to implement. Any event name can be added over here. So let's say I will call an event over here as user clicked. This event will go to your parent component, and parent component can react to it, like would do whatever you want to implement. And in this case, when you are sending an event to the parent, you can also send in data with it. So you can send a payload from the child to the parent to tell some information about what happened. Okay, and this is implemented using output. So over here you will be defining the @output decorator, and you will write the name of the event which you want to trigger. So I will say it's going to be user clicked, and what type of data you want to send in it. So you have to define that I want to send string value, number value, or array value in the code. Okay, so let's implement this. So I'll go to the lifecycle component, and over here I want to implement output. So I'll say output. Okay, so what is the name of this output? I will call this any custom name I want to add to it. So I'll say user clicked. Now this will be assigned to a different data type that is called as event emitter. Okay, and event emitter has to be loaded from Angular core. So we will write event emitter equal to new event emitter, like this. Okay, and you also need to define the type of the data which you want to send from the event. So I want to send a string data from here. Okay, so the user click is an event emitter which will return you data in a form of a string. Okay, so this will be sent to the parent. And now to run this code, what I will do is I will create a button over here, and I'll right click over here, and on the click of the button I want to call a function. The function is called as clicked. Okay, it's not implemented, so we'll implement that in the lifecycle component, and over here I right clicked. So this will only monitor that the button has been clicked, but now I want to send data from child to parent. So what I do is over here I will trigger that event. So I will say this dot user clicked dot emit, and emit will be used for sending data from child to parent, and I have to pass in the data which I want to send from child to parent. So what I will do is I will just pass in the current timestamp. So what is the current time on my system? I will send that from child to the parent as a payload. Okay, so that's the code. So what we do is we implement output. The output is equal to a custom event. The name of the custom event is user clicked. You can name it as anything. I'm just making it simple by calling it as user clicked. You can write any fancy name for it. then it's assigned to an event emitter, which is going to return us a string value. That's the payload which it's going to return, and it's a new event emitter which we're implementing. Okay, that's the new event emitter object. Now, in the app component, I have to receive this event. So it's a custom event, but it will be received as a normal event. So here on the child component, I will say user clicked, and what to do if the user has clicked. So I have to create a handler over here. So I will call this as child to parent event, just a handler for that, like this. Okay, and I will implement this in the component, the app component TS, and write a console.log in it, which is going to be child to parent. Okay, so let's run this code. Let's see if it works. Go to console, clear the console, refresh, and click on this button. Yep, so you can see now, when I click on the button, it prints a message, child to parent event. That means my code is successfully able to send an event from child to the parent component, and the parent component can react to it. So it can run some logic, it can run some data changes which are required. Okay, so this way I can send data. Now, how do I receive this data which has been sent from child to parent? So when you are receiving any event, it passes the event information. So it's available for every event, like even on a click event, you will receive the event information. So for that, you have to use a special keyword, which is the $event. And this will give us the event information, that what is the data about the event. So we'll write inside the event handler that I want to receive the $event. And in your code over here, you will also write event. And that is going to be a type of string, because I'm passing a string from the child. And I can write what is the data I'm receiving in the event. So I'm sending the timestamp right now. So when I run this code, it will receive the timestamp for this event. So click on this button. So you can see this is the timestamp for right now at this this is the timestamp for when the click was happened. So now if I'm clicking it, it returns a time that when this event was happened. So this way you can send data from child component to the parent component. Okay. Any questions on this? Okay, so I got a question. Is this component data interaction output child to parent we use only for user events handle purpose? Yes. So this is a way how you implement child to parent communication. So whenever any event happens on the child, you cannot freely send data to it. You have to trigger a custom event, and then only the parent component will listen to it. Okay. And whenever user does something, then only you will need to send information to the parent, or you can do it anytime. You can do it with any timers which you have implemented, or any asynchronous API request which you're implementing. That can also trigger these events from child to parent. Okay, I will summarize this, what I did. So first, what we need to do is we need to implement child to parent communication. So child to parent communication is done with an event. So your child component will trigger event to the parent, and the parent has to listen to that event to know that the data is received. Okay, so this is a custom event which is implemented by the event emitter. And how do we implement this is by using a output. So output will allow us to send data from child to parent by using this event. So let's implement this code. So first you have to go to the child component. In the child component, you have to define an output. The output will have the name, the custom event which you want to implement, equal to the event emitter. That what is the event emitter going to return you over here. So the event emitter will return me a string value. You can have different types of values also. You can use an interface also if you need it. So this value will be passed from child to parent component, and we assign it to a new event emitter. Okay. So now when the user does some action or any kind of activity happens on your child component, you want to send some data from child to parent. So for this, you will call the method this dot the custom name which you have. So in our case, it's user clicked based on the output. Okay. So I will say this dot user click dot emit. On the event emitter, you have a emit method that emits the data from child to parent. And you want to pass in some data to it, you will write whatever data you want to pass in. So I'm just passing the timestamp right now, that what is the ISO timestamp, and that goes from child to the parent component, and the parent component will receive that with the implementation of a custom event. So this event receive because it's an event, so we'll write event binding. So we'll say, okay, which event I want to listen to, that is the user clicked, and how do I want to handle this? So the handler for it, and I also want to read the event data by writing the $event. So this is a custom keyword which Angular provides you, or native keyword which Angular provides you to define that what is the event data returned from this event. And you can handle this in our TS code. Write the handler, you will receive the event data. We know the event data is going to be a string value, so we'll receive string and print that value on the screen, or do any kind of other operation if required. Okay, so I'm going to commit these changes. You can check this on the GitHub. Okay, so this covers how we communicate from child to parent and parent to child using inputs and outputs. Okay, I hope everybody is clear with this. Somnath, I have unmuted you.
Sir, here you have used event emitter. So is it fixed that we have to use the event emitter only, or I can give the any name to that?
No, it has to be
It's
event
any
emitter.
event.
Event emitter.
Okay. And it is means always when we pass any event, is it with the only $sign only? That is the main format.
Yes, that's what I told you. That's a keyword which Angular provides you.
Okay. And that emit is a method in event emitter.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So I think that's it. Great. So you can try this code. I've uploaded the code on GitHub. You can check the GitHub link. That will give you a better understanding how the code has been updated. Then we'll continue. Hi everyone. So have you tried the code? Any questions on it? Okay. So I think we can continue. So we have seen how inputs and outputs work, and we have integrated lifecycle hooks in our example. Okay, so now the next thing which you're going to learn is creating directives and working with directives. That's the next topic. We'll start from here. So we have the topic of directives and pipes, which we are going to cover now. Okay. So let's understand what we are covering today in this. So we're going to cover what are directives. Directives are of different types. There are 4 types of directives, or 3 types of directives: structural, attribute, and custom directives. And we're also going to learn pipes. So let's see what are they and how they are used in our code. Okay. So when we create any code, any component, the component has a HTML attached to it, the component template that is attached to the component's TS code. So now, in some cases, we have the template, but we want to run some special functionalities on HTML. So like we have the ngIf, that is a directive, ng-for is a directive. So these directives actually what they do is, on existing elements on the screen, they will add some special features to it. So we are going to use directives to add functionalities to existing elements in the template. These can be any element or any component which we have. Okay. So what is the feature, or what are the benefits of directives? Directives helps you extend the features which your HTML elements provide. So it technically allows you to add new features to any HTML element. It allows you to modify the DOM. It allows you to appear inside any HTML tag or any content inside any HTML tag, and allow you to modify the code using JavaScript classes. So very similar to how components work, but they do not have templates. They will be based on the data which is coming, or the template coming from the elements they are assigned on. Okay, so let's cover how they are implemented. So there are 4 types of directives. We can say 4, but technically there are 3 only. So components are a special category by itself only. So we already have worked with components. We have seen how components are added to the screen. They can be used for passing data, loading data on the screen, all these things. Then we have the structural directives. The structural directives are used for modifying the structure. So what are these directives? So these are the special directives which are used for modifying structure. So they are the ones which have the asterisk or the star keyword in front of them. So the ngIf, which I have used earlier, or ng-for, are the examples of structural directives. Why they are called as structural? Because they allow you to modify the existing structure of the template. Because if you have the ngIf, it allows you to remove or show this component on your demand. So it's a structural directive. ng-for is also structural directive because it allows you to repeat the elements. Then you have attribute directives. So attribute directives are generally ones which are used for modifying your sorry, I'll just cover from here. So these are the slides for how the ng-for and all work. We already have seen how they work. So I'm just going to skip to the next. There is another one which we haven't worked with, that is the ng-switch. You can try this out by yourself, how ng-switch works. I will give you the code for it in the example, and then you can see how this works. Next is here attribute directives. So attribute directives are special type of directives which allows you to change attributes or properties of element. Like we have the ng class and the ng styled directive. So they are inbuilt. They allow you to modify classes or styles of a element. Okay, so we'll see how they are used. We'll start with implementing ng class and see how ng class helps you in modifying the element. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's go to the article callouts, which we implemented earlier. Okay, so one thing I would like to do over here is comment this style which we have. So it doesn't add that animation. So I want to disable the animation right now. So we have this, one second. Okay, so I have this code running perfectly fine. So what I want is I want to add some classes to some elements. So I want to control the logic for it. So what are classes actually? So these are not your JavaScript classes. These are your CSS classes. CSS classes are used for updating content on the screen, like the look and feel of an element. So you want to use some CSS classes to modify some content. I'm thinking like, should we do it in this same component or should we create something new? I think let's create something new. What we'll do is we'll create a new component over here and we'll call it as news table. Okay, so it's a new component. It's called as news table, and I'm going to add this component in the app component only. So here in the app component, where I have this callouts, okay, the article callouts component. After this, I want to add this news table. So I'll write I do a news table and write this code over here. And yep, the table works over here. It loads the table component for me. Great. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to create a table of all the different news articles which we have. So I need to have the data also, so I can just hard code the data in this component also. So I will take this data from the callouts, copy it from here, and also copy that into the news table over here. So I'm just relying on hard coded data right now. So this is the hard coded data. Now I want to create a table in this. So I will write table tr and td. So just to create different sections, and I will write a CSS class on this, call it as table. So this class comes from Bootstrap. Okay, now I want to put some data into this table. So this will be table heading, and I have the data in my component for the news, which is the top news data. What I will do is I will assign it to a property in my component. I'll create a news property, assign it to the article, that it's article interface array equal to the top news which we have. Okay, so I have the news data assigned to the local the public property of this class. I can use this in my component. I can read this data over here. So I will repeat this data. So I write ng if let news of news property, and that will repeat this section. So let's write 1 over here, and does it shows the value? Oh, sorry, it's ng4. I put ngif. Yep, so it prints out 1 over here 4 times because there are 4 articles. Okay, that's fine, that's correct. Now what we can do is we can get the data from this news and properly show the details. So I can write from the news data, I want to show the title of the news. I want to create another section that will be the author dot the name of the author, and is this news a top news? So there is a property in it which is top news. Okay, so based on that I get this information which I want to show. Okay, so that's perfect, and we can add the headings also over here. You can say this is the title of the news, the author of the news. Okay, like it's top, right? So 4 news are printed with the title and all. So now when you are showing this kind of a data, there is a common thing that you will like kind of a row. So when you work with Excel has like different rows colored in your code. So what I want is the first row should be in white color, and this that's the odd row, and all the even rows in my data should be in gray color, so that I can easily differentiate what are the colors or what are the different rows easily in my code. Because if I have huge amount of this data, it's very hard to understand which row I am working with. So I want to differentiate each of the row with a different color. Okay, so how do we implement that? So very simple. So when you are implementing the ng for, it provides you another variable over here. You can call it as index. So it provides us an index, and this index value is a number which is going to start from 0. So now over here you can write I over here. You can call this as serial number, like something like this. Okay, and it prints 0 1 0 1 2 3 because the array index starts from 0. All right. Okay, so now I want to write the logic for alternate rows. So what we can do is we can use the same concept of this I to find an alternate row. So it's just a simple mathematical operation. So you can write ng style. So I'm starting with ng style. We are going to work with ng style right now. We'll say ng style. Okay, so what style I want to implement on it? So I can pass in a object, and in this object I can write some custom CSS style. So I can say I want to add a background color of gray over here. So it has to be a gray color background color for each of the row. So you can see now all of the rows have the gray color because I'm adding the ng style on the row, and there are 4 rows in it. So 4 rows are in the gray color, but I now want this to be alternate. So one should be white, one should be gray. So what we can do is we can write a condition over here. So we can simply write I mod 2. Okay, and if it is true, then the color will be white, otherwise it will be gray. Okay, now when I run the code, the odd rows are in the white and the even rows are in the sorry, odd rows are in the gray and the even rows are in the white color over here, because it runs the mod operation. So mod will find out the remainder, and based on that, we can run the logic that, okay, what alternate row colors we want to add into the code. So we can use ng style to customize the style based on some JavaScript logic, and we can define the properties for it. So very simple one for adding alternate row colors for our use case. Okay, so try this out. I'll send you the code for the component, because it's only one single component which we have worked. Okay, so I got a question. Can't we use Bootstrap CSS on table to do alternate colors? Yes, we can do it, but for right now, I think this is the very simplest example to understand that if you want to implement custom CSS based on some JavaScript variables, how to implement that. So that's why I'm covering it over here. Okay. This is the HTML. This is the TS code, which I'm going to send you, and you can run this code and see how it works. Okay. So I'm also going to commit this in the GitHub. So it's the example for ng style. Okay, so please try this out and then we'll continue. I'll give you 5 minutes for this. And if you have any questions on it, please let me know. Maheshwari, what's the error you're getting? No, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My screen is visible.
Hmm.
Yes, this is like here there is a news variable, right?
Yeah.
Inside there's like this, like type ID.
Can you scroll to the top?
Okay.
So this is correct. Okay. Scroll down. So there is some problem with the interface.
Okay.
So let's see what does it say. No. Back to the code. Let's see the error which you're getting. Scroll down. The type ID likes is not assignable to type article array. So is there any property which is missing or okay, so yeah, maybe one issue. Go to the interface again, sorry. Go to the interface. In the interface, make the title as optional. So after the colon or before the colon, just write question mark. Yes. Save this and then go to the component. Yeah, because I updated this code earlier.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Thank
you. Okay, anyone else has any issues, any questions on this? Right, great. So we have seen how we can use our JavaScript logic to customize any CSS property. So I've just used the background property, but you can use any kind of a property over here and write a custom CSS logic for that particular element. Now this is very common to do when you are getting some data you want to customize the look and feel based on some logic by CSS properties directly, but it's not recommended on large scale application. Because in that case, you may want to have some kind of a reusable logic of CSS, which is implemented at different places. Right now, I'm just writing white and gray, but in your production applications, you will be writing like some color codes over here, like CCC, and that color codes will be used for defining the colors. And you would like to have these color codes in a CSS code or a CSS logic. So what we can do is I can create some CSS classes which are in the global CSS. So in the style.css file, I can create a class over here like gray row like this and define a color for it. Or we can say like a even row and an odd row. What is the color of an even row and what is the color of a odd row? Okay, so the even rows would have the color as CCC and sorry, color not width. And this one should have the color as white. Okay, so one is gray, one is white. So this is the colors I want to implement on anywhere I'm implementing this kind of logic. So what we can do is instead of writing the CSS properties directly, we can replace this with a class syntax also. Okay, so here instead of ng style, I'll say ng class and what class I want to add. So what you will do is, like in our case, we need to add two different classes. So the logic is the class name would be over here. So we have the class even row. So we'll say even row, the class name, and it has to be based on some logic. So we can write if this syntax is true, then add even. if this is false, add odd over here. Okay, so if the logic is true, add even. If the logic is false, like add odd over here. So instead of changing the properties of the element, we are adding CSS classes to the element now. So if you see the code, it will have the same kind. Okay, I actually have to do background color. Sorry, my mistake. To write background color over here. Now you can see it also runs the same code, but instead of adding CSS properties, it adds CSS classes based on what type of a row it is. So for the first one, it's an odd row, so it prints out odd row. The second one is an even row, so it prints out the even row class on it. So you can control different classes based on some properties which you have. So ng class and ng style are used for adding CSS properties or CSS classes based on your data which you have, and you can decide different logics for it. Okay, so I will send you this code. This is for running the ng class, and then we will continue. So try this out, and if you have any questions on it, please let me know. In the styles.css, you should add these two CSS classes. Okay, so got few messages. How can we use data table? We need to import any package. Yes, so if you need to use the data table from Angular Bootstrap, then you have to use a Bootstrap package. I would avoid using any packages right now because we need to start like just work with the basics. Once we have good hold of the data flow, then we'll start using any packages in our code. Next question is, I have two components, parent with parent components. Sorry, one component contain the form and the other component contain the table. If the user fills the form and submit, it will display all the data on the table. How will this data flow work? Mean child to child or one child to parent and to child, or I can implement child to child view scenario. So there is no @view scenario which will help you in this. So I just saw that you have been asking the same question about @view. So that will not help you over here. What you have to do is you have to do a communication from your child to the parent, and the parent will do the communication to the child in that case. So how that kind of a communication works is you should always have some parent. Okay, in your case, if it is a form component, you will create a form component on the child of it. When you fill the form will send information to the parent by using output. So over here you will say I have output something like form submitted. Okay, so this will go to the parent. The parent will receive this data as an event. Now the table component which you have will be receiving this data as an input now. So what you'll do is this will be implemented as an input. So we'll say form data, and this form data will come from the parent. So this is how the communication works between child to child in Angular. So you have to first send the data to the parent. Parent will receive that as an event and then forward the data to the child component, which is direct child-to-child communication is not available in Angular. You have to use this flow. Okay, any other question? Okay, so I got another question from Sachin. The question is, directive is as a JS function? No. So directive, which I've showed you, these are pre-built directives in Angular, and they allow you to add CSS classes or styles. But you can create your own directives. Now I will show you how you can create your own directive in this case. Okay, so let's say I have these 4 rows over here, and whenever I'm hovering on these rows, I want to add a style to them. Like I want to add a yellow color highlight to these rows when I'm hover on them. Okay, right now they are all in their specific colors, but when I mouse over on them, I want to change the background color. So this can be done with CSS also, but we'll try this with implementing a custom directive, and that custom directive will add the highlight color on the element. Okay, so let's implement this. So first step would be creating a new directive. So for a directive, we'll run the different commands. So it's going to be ngg d for directive, the directives folder. So create a directives folder over here, and we'll create a directive which is called as highlight. So this will be used for highlighting an element when you hover on that. So it will add a yellow background to it. Okay, so create this. So the directive is created. You can see over here. So when you create a directive will not have a CSS file and it will not have a template with it. So just a simple TS file and a spec file for writing the test cases. In this, you will find that it uses a different decorator, which is the directive decorator. And the selector over here is called as Edureka highlight. So it's a attribute directive. So when you are writing square brackets, that means you are using a CSS attribute, which is the which means you have to write a attribute on the element. Okay, so this will work if you want to run, use this. You have to write this on the element like this as an attribute. So write square brackets, and in this you will write Edureka highlight. Sorry, like this. Because sorry, it is an attribute directive, so you can write it just writing like an attribute, which is Edureka highlight. Okay, now the code inside the directive will run. So what I can do is I can show you example like a message over here. I can write console.log and say highlight directive in it. So we run this code. In the console, you will see this is triggered 4 times because the table has 4 rows in it, and each row has this directive on it. So those 4 rows are been converted or added to the support of this directive, and it's now been initialized on it. Now the directive has no template. So how will it get the reference of this element? Because I want to change the background color of this tr. So how will I get the reference to this? So the reference to this is available in our code by doing a dependency injection. So it may be a new thing which we are learning. So dependency injection is a way where we can request Angular to provide features to us or inbuilt services to us in our constructor. So this has to be implemented at the constructor level. So we'll say a private keyword. So private variable. The name is the alias. First of all, you can write any name over here. So I can write EL element, any variable name, and what I want to get as a dependency. Dependency is something like I'm looking for some value. What value I'm looking for? So I want to get the element reference. So there is a service available which provides us element reference, and it's available from Angular core. So when I write element reference, what it does is it returns me the element on which the directive is added. Okay, so go to the browser. What we'll do is we'll print the element reference over here as a console. So write el and console that. Run the code and you will find there is this element reference which is returned. That is the reference to this element. Now in the native element, you will find there is a tr, that is the first row. You go to the second one, you can see this is the second one, third, and the fourth. So each of the element is available in my code now. So these are DOM elements. So if you want to make any DOM changes, you can make direct JavaScript code change. You can run direct JavaScript code on them and make changes to them. So over here, I can write el.nativeElement.style.background color equal to yellow. So run this code now. We'll see all the records are in yellow color. Okay, so this way you can make changes into the element by using the DOM properties and directly run the show them on the screen. Okay, so I can change anything on this element. I can change CSS color, CSS. I can write any kind of a color changes based on CSS. Okay. Now I don't want to run this natively like this. What I want to do is I want to add an event on it. So when I hover on the element, this tr tag, then only this color should change. So how will we implement that? As we say host listener. Host listener means the host element, which is the tier right now, will listen to events on it. So which event I want to listen to it is the mouse hover event. When I mouse over on it, and what to do when I have a mouse over. So I will call this function, which is called as mouse over, and change the elements reference. So write this dot el dot native element style background color equal to yellow. When I mouse out, I will write a handler function for this, and I will call this as mouse out. Okay, so run this code now, and we'll remove the yellow color from it, from the background. Okay, so now, okay, if I run this code, yeah, I will comment this first one, and now you can see it. When I hover on any of the element, it prints or it updates the color to be in yellow. Okay, so this way you can write any custom logic also. So this is for just adding a background color, but you can use this to use you can use any kind of a business logic to change anything on the element. So you want to change CSS properties, you want to change content of it, any formatting you want to do, you can do with this. Okay, so try this out, try this directive, then we'll continue. We'll send you the code. So this is the code for the directive. The command for creating the directive is this, and it has used in the component over here. like this. You can see I'm just adding this Edurica highlight on the TR. So I will just send you this TR. This is how you have to add it. Okay, so there is one more thing which I want to show you, but first try this code on the system, then we'll continue. Okay, so I got a question. We need the square brackets? No, we don't need the square brackets right now to make changes to it. Okay, so I got a question. Can we make a structural directive? So the question is actually in custom directives, we can only make attribute directives in nature, or not the custom, not the structural directives. We can make structural directives. So, but the point is, with the structural directives, there are no any new use cases which you would need to implement, because structurally you will only need to have a loop or a condition, and which is already available. But we have the code, like we have the availability in the like a privilege to add a structural directive in this code also. That's not a problem. So I got a question. A native element meaning the current element. Yep. So the directive which is added on the screen, the native element means the element which on it, this directive has been added. So in our case, the directive is added on the TR. So that's the native element for us. Hi everyone. So any questions on this? So I got a question. Can you make a custom directive if more than 4 letter in the word of the first column, I want to make it as underline? How can I write the logic for it? Okay, so we can try that out. What you have to do is Then you have to create a new directive. So I will just call it as underline. Okay, so new directive, iterative underline, and we'll go to the element like on which I want to run this code. So I want to run this code on this element, which is td. So I'll write Edureka underline. That's the name of the directive. Okay, that's added. So then what you have to do is you need to know that it has how much text in it. So here in the constructor, we'll receive private el element ref, and on this, okay, on a directive also you can update. You can also have lifecycle hooks on it. So in our case, we'll write implements on init or on view init actually. Sorry, after view init. Okay, so we'll implement after view init. This is the lifecycle hook, and the name of this is ng after view init. So after view init is going to be triggered when the directive has the content in it. Okay, so over here I can write console.log this dot element dot native element dot inner HTML or inner text. Okay, so it will return me the text of it. So let's see, does it works? Yep, it works, and it gives me the text. So if it gives me the text, what I can do is I can write a logic over here saying if this text is having length more than 4, actually, yeah, length more than 4, okay, then on the element we can add a style dot text decoration equal to underline. Okay, let's run this code, and now it adds an underline over here. So if the text is more than 4, it adds an underline. So you can say, let's change it to 10. If the text is more than 10 characters, then only the underline shows up. Okay, so this one DDIDEC doesn't have underline because it's only 8 characters, but anything which is having more than 10 characters has underline like this. You can create a directive for this kind of a scenario also. Okay, it's very simple. So when you actually rely on content which is in the element, then you should use after view init. So after view init will be called on a directive when the content has been loaded. Otherwise, if you use ng on init over here, the ng on init will not provide you the content which is in the template. So if I write on init over here, say ng on init, and write the same logic, console element dot inner text, this will not be available over here. So you can see this is printing a undefined, like an empty string over here, because it doesn't have any content right now. So after the view has been initialized, like the view is available, then you want to run this code. Great. So if you want this directive also, I will commit this code implemented added custom directives like this. Okay. All right. So we created 2 custom directives and used it in our code. Okay, so I got a question. How do we know which interface exactly we need to use according to the condition? So is it regarding this code? Like this kind of code? So see, these are, there is no like handbook over here or cheat sheet over here, which will give you that what interfaces are required. It depends on your experience. So it's not something which I can give you a bulk that, okay, these are 100 interfaces, use them. So you have to take some time as your experience grows, then only you will remember these interfaces. Even for me, I don't remember a lot of interfaces. I just remember the ones which are used daily in our development. So it's completely based on your experience. So for maybe for today or for a few days, you don't know, but in few weeks or few months, you will get the hold of these. Okay, so what we did is we implemented directives. We created directives. There are two directives which we created. One is this one for underline, and one is for the highlight. Now, in Angular, similar to directives, there is another concept which works on the template level, and it doesn't, it works on the element level where you have added it and allows you to modify the content. So very simple example is, let's say I have this title over here, and I want this title to be shown in uppercase, not in this lowercase right now. I want to show this in uppercase. So how will I implement this? So that would be that I will go to the code and override the text. Like I will change the text to uppercase in that case. But no, in Angular, there is a feature which is called as pipes, and pipes help you in modifying details on the data level only. So it will not update the original data which you have. It will only update the data when it has been presented in the template. Like when you show the content to the user, then only it's going to be modified. So let's say I will go to the news table. Okay, so the news table, you can see there is a published on date over here. So can you understand this date? Like if I give you, what is this date right now? Is it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? What is the day over here? What is the month over here? What time is it? So as of for a normal user, it needs like few seconds to understand this date. And we prefer to always format this properly so that it's easy for the users to understand. As a developer, you can easily say, okay, yeah, this is month, this is year, and this is using a 24-hour time zone, and shows over here properly. Not a normal user can do. So let's say I have this data over here, which is published. Like we can write it over here, published on. When was this article published on? And over here, I can write news dot published on. So what was the key name for this? That's published on. Okay, so run this code. You can see the date gets printed like this. It's not nicely formatted. It's just printed over here. And I kind of don't like this kind of format. It's not clear. So what we can do is we can use a special syntax called as a pipe. So it is used when you are doing a string interpolation. So it will not be used anywhere else. It has to be used inside the string interpolation, like these curly braces. And you can write a pipe symbol, and then you can write date. So I'm telling the code that this value which I have is actually a date, and format this properly for me. And now it prints out the date like this. So it makes more sense. It's much more clearer. You know that, okay, this is December 18, 1st of March, September 12, and it is much clearer in this case. But now there can be scenarios that you don't like this format. Like if you're in US, you have a different format. If you're in Asia, you have a different format for dates. So what you can do is you can also pass in any custom formats you want. So there are a few pre-built formats. I can say I want to have a long format, and it prints out the long format for you. So it's going to be December 18 at this time. There is a short format which prints out like this. Okay, and there are also formats for time only. So I can give you the link that where do you want to find these. So if you want to know what formats are supported, go to this link. So this is the documentation for the date pipe, and it tells you like what format you want to support, what time zone you want to add, and what are the locale settings. Okay, so these are the pre-built formats. So these are all inbuilt into the code. So you can pick any of them and just write the name of it. So if you want full, you can just write full, and it shows the formatting in a full format. Okay, then you can have your own custom format. So you can say, I only want to know the year. So there are 4 types of years you can write, like the last minimum digits, the last 2 digits, the last 3 digits, and the last or the 4 digits of a year. So I can write full. So I can write YYY, and that will only print the year for me. So published in these years. Okay. Then I also want to know the month. So again, for the month, you have different characters. So let's say I want to print the month. So September as a full month name. I can go to the code, and over here I can write MMM 4 times M in uppercase, and this will bring September in the code. So like, or the month name, well, not like September, but yeah, month name. So December, March, September, April. So these are the months. And if you want to also add the date, so you can scroll down, you will find there is a date also. Yeah, the day of the month, like this. So you can just write D, and D will print the day of the month. So it's 18 December 20. So you can create your own custom date formats if required, or you can use the ones which are already built into the Angular code. So the pipes are useful when you want to do formatting only at the template level, so that you don't change the data coming from the API. You just change the data when it is being presented on the screen. So whenever you're showing it, you modify this data over here. Okay, so there are different pipes also available in the code. So let's say I have the author name, but I want the author name to be in uppercase, so I can use the uppercase pipe over here. So it will change the text into uppercase. And a feature with the pipe is you can combine multiple pipes together. So right now, if you run this code, it will take the data from this property and convert to uppercase. But if I write another pipe after this, I can write lowercase. So it takes the data from this property, converts to uppercase, and the output of this property combined the uppercase pipe will be passed to the lowercase pipe, and the content will be formatted back to the lowercase. So you can combine multiple pipes also together. So in our case, what I can do is I can change this to uppercase, and also the date pipe which I've added, you can say the date should be in uppercase for me. So I will write uppercase over here. So first it formats the date. The formatted content will go to the uppercase pipe, and the uppercase pipe will change all the characters to uppercase over here, all the alphabets to uppercase. Okay, so pipes can be used for formatting data. They can be also chained. So this is called as pipe chaining also. So one pipe can provide data to the next pipe, and you can have n number of pipes chained together. Okay, so please try this, and then we'll continue. So this is the HTML changes which I've done. No changes on the TS file, so only the changes in the HTML. So try this out. Okay, I'll give you 5 minutes for this. Please try these changes, then continue. Hi Chetna. So please refer to this code on the screen. Maybe you haven't added the element reference. The element reference will come from the Angular core. Hey, Chetna. So you can ignore this error which you're getting in the spec file. Even I'm also getting this, so we don't need to worry about this right now. We are not working in the spec file, so you can ignore this error right now. All right, so let's continue. So we have seen how pipes work. We can also create our custom pipes also. Like we have seen how directives are created with the directive command. So we'll just create a new pipe also in our code. So I'm just going to replicate the same underscore pipe. Sorry, not the underscore pipe, the uppercase pipe in our code. So write ng gp in the pipes folder, and I will create my own custom implementation of the uppercase pipe. Okay, so if you go to this folder now, you will find there is uppercase pipe added over here. So now, right now, if it will have a name conflict because I already have a pipe called as uppercase. So I will call this as edureka uppercase. Okay, so it's a new pipe which is going to be used for adding the uppercase functionality in my code. So it's just a replica of it. Okay, so how do we write the code for this then? So when you're implementing a pipe, you implement it using the pipe decorator, and the class implements a pipe transform interface. The pipe transform interface requires us to create a transform method. The transform method receives a value, arguments, and returns some value as output. Okay, so right now, if I use this pipe, like I will go to my component, the table component which we have over here, and I run this, it will not print anything on the screen. See, the dates are gone. Why? Because the pipe is returning null from here. So whatever you return from here is the value which is going to be shown on the screen. So if I write over here Edureka, so I will just see Edureka over here. So whatever value is returned, that is the value you see on your screen. Okay. So how can I use this now? So the value parameter which you're receiving will have the value which has been passed into the pipe. So see, if I write console.log value, so you can see it has this text coming in. So where is this text coming from? This is coming from this code. So when I run this section, it returns me that today is the 10th of September or any month, and that value goes into the uppercase pipe. So that's the value. So it prints out the value is 12th of September 2020. Okay. Now I can do changes on it. So it's I know the value is going to be a string value. So instead of unknown, I will write over here, it's going to be a string value which is going to be returned. And the output of this code is going to be a string value also. Right? So now, if it is a string value, I will write return value, like whatever the value is being received, I will return as is from this code. So now when I run this, okay, so it gives me error that the argument string or null is not assignable to string. The reason is when you're running the date pipe before it, the date pipe can return you a string value or a null value, and our pipe assumes that the value will always be a string value. So that will be a conflict. So I will also change it to, it's going to be a string or a null value. Okay. And over here also we'll say it's going to return a string or a null value. Okay, now it works, but I can see the same text. It's not been converted into uppercase. So let's convert this code to uppercase now. So because it can be a string, it can be a null value. So what I will do is I will say if value is present and value dot length means if it is a string, it has more it has a length more than 0, then return value dot to uppercase. So in JavaScript code, the string object has a method which is called as to uppercase, and we'll call that over here. So we'll say to uppercase, and that will convert the string into a uppercase value if the value is provided. If the value is null, so this code will not run. It will skip this code and go to this line and return the value whatever is being provided over here. So that will be null. Okay, so when I run this code now, you can see it prints out 18 December, and December is all in uppercase. You can see this one, all of them are properly converted into uppercase. So this is how the even uppercase pipe works. So it receives some value, converts into the right case which you're looking for, and returns it as a output. So implementing pipes is very simple, but they are very powerful because they allow you to modify values at the template level. So even if you're receiving data which is not in the right format from the API, you can still do the formatting directly in your template level. All right, so that's how we implement a pipe. So I'll just commit this custom pipe, and you can try this code locally on your system. You can check. I will add the code in the chat also. Okay. Okay, so one thing from the last session, somebody has requested me to share the link for the classes in TypeScript. I got this as an email. So this is the link I think you're looking for. Over here, you will understand how classes are implemented. So I've sent in the chat. And I will ask the team to reply you with the same link. I'm not sure who has sent this. I didn't get the name for that, but yeah, so this is the link which you're looking for. Right, so please try this out. We have around 10 minutes left, so I will give you 5 minutes for the for trying this code, and after that we'll discuss on any questions you have from the session. So we are kind of done with all the topics in this. There is one small logic which is for creating a new pipe, which I will show you in the next session. We don't even have the right content for that, the right code base setup for that. We need some services to be implemented to run that code, and we'll do that in the next session. Okay, so try this out, then I will give you a recap like what we did and what we have in the next session and any questions you have. Okay, so let's continue. So I got a question. Can you show the example of switch? Yeah, I can show you. 1 second. So Kunal, I don't know the ticket number for your request, but I will forward this ticket number to the SPOC which I checked with and see if we can resolve this problem. Okay, so Shank, just give me a few minutes. I will just show you a demo of how ng-switch works. So I will use ng-switch in this code, in this table code, where we are implementing this section. Okay, so over here, I have this is top. In the previous example where we implemented the callouts, I had a star over here, like if it is a star or a top article. So we can do this with if, or we can do this with switch. So if is used when you have some conditional code. Although switch is also conditional, but if is something where you want to evaluate some result, like less than, greater than, equal to something, or not equal to something. Those are the scenarios where you have if conditions. Anything which is an absolute value, like uh, is this a top news or not, or is this a specific category of the news? So in that case, we can just use some switch case to implement that logic. So what I can do is, in our data, let's look at the data. So it has categories defined in it, like which kind of a category this data is for. So it's entertainment, international, and entertainment. So what you can do is, over here, I can create a column. Let's say category. And here also we'll implement a category. But in this, I will implement it using a switch case. Okay. So let's write the code for a switch. So first thing would be on this div tag, or sorry, on this td tag, I have to define that this is going to control the switch. Okay, and what property is going to be used for the switch? So that will be from the news. We're going to get the category data. Now, what elements I want to show? So I want to show a span tag. In this span tag, I can create like a globe over here for international, and you can write entertainment by this movie icon. Okay, so they are all shown over here, but I want to switch between these two categories. So over here, I can say this is going to be a ng switch case, and what is the value which I'm looking for? So that is going to be entertainment. So if the value is entertainment, sorry, it's going to be a string value. So I have to write in single quotes inside it. So it's a string. And if it is a entertainment value, then show the film icon, otherwise the international. Okay, so yeah, actually this has to be over here. And for the other one, I will write a default over here. So that will be ng switch default. So there are two categories. For the entertainment, I have implemented the switch case saying if it is a entertainment category, then use this icon. If it is not the entertainment category, or any of the case doesn't matches, then use the default case, which is the globe icon for its international news. So this is how we do it. Okay, so this way you can implement switch case to run the logic based on specific absolute values and show different show different content. Okay, so that's the example for a switch case. You can try this out later. I'll commit this code also, ng switch. Okay, so Shashank, what's your question in the CSS code? So guys, we are done with the session for today. I didn't got any other questions. So you can start working on the assignment, which is going to be assignment. There are two assignments over here. One is for the directives, one is for the pipes. So you can complete these two assignments. They are very simple, and they are going to be following the same code which we have covered in the today's session. So you will be quite familiar with it. Okay, so I got a question. What is the shortcut for using those icons? So on my system, there is a keyboard which is available on. This is only on a Mac, not on a Windows machine. So it has a keyboard which shows you these icons, and you can just pick any of the icon and use it as a normal character. Or you can go to your browser and search for emojis and use this kind of a link and use any of the correct these emojis, and they will work as character codes. If you're having a new Mac, like the M1 series Macs, so on that there is a function key. The function key has a globe icon on it. If you click on it, that it loads the emoji keyboard for you. Okay, so I will share you. I will request you for screen share. Here you go, Shashank. And guys, if you want to drop off, you can. You just have to now complete the assignments, and please submit the assignments before the next session. Yes, Shashank, what's the question? Shashank? Hello? Okay, so I got a question from Sheikh. Why ng switch is not used with the asterisk? The reason is the ng switch is just for telling that you are going to implement a switch case, but it's not making any structural changes into the code. So the structural changes are only done by the ng switch case and the ng switch default directives. So that's why we don't have the asterisk on the ng switch case code. No, Shashank, I can't hear you. Okay, Sheikh, I think I got, I got the answer. Yep, great. Okay, so Shashank, can't hear you. Please check your audio. Thank you, everyone. I will be just answering Shashank's question, and then I'll end the webinar. If you want to drop off, you can. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining in. Shashank, I can't hear you. Please check your audio. So Shashank, maybe there is an issue from your side. You're unmuted. I can see your screen, but I can't hear your audio.
Yeah, now I can hear you, sir.
Yep. So
am
what's
I
the issue?
audible?
Yes, you are up. Yep.
Yeah, actually, this the red one, the red portion in you was not the same size that I am having.
Okay, go to the page, go to the code. Shashank? Hello? Shashank, are you there?